Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Season 1, Episode 9, The Monster You Created. How many of you are familiar with Frostpunk? It's a game. 2 games, actually. I don't think the second one's out yet. And I am correct. It comes out in September. Something that Mr. Red brought up, which is fascinating to think about, is the very nature of punk isn't automatically inclined towards hopelessness, but definitely lends itself towards hopeless settings. I use Frostpunk as the example because I think it's one of the more interesting things that looks like it's a subversion of that trope, but actually isn't. I mean, I can point to Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk's never getting better, right? No story in Cyberpunk is ever going to end well. That's not what punk is about. Punk is about defiance. Punk is about spitting in the eyes of the establishment or the authority while they are screwing you over and or killing you, because screw them. That's punk, right to its very core. Yeah, there has to be a lack of hope. Frostpunk I bring up specifically because for those of you aware of the greater lore of the Frostpunk setting, you know that that setting is doomed. Like, they dead, yo. Whatever the specific thing is that caused it, and there's some debates with regards to what exactly is causing it in Frostpunk. Something is destroying the planet. We may survive that storm, and that is indeed the primary focus of the central campaign of that game. That's it. The planet's doomed. There is no hope. In that case, the defiance is actually directly against the environment, the storm, the world that itself is dying around you. It's throwing up one giant middle finger and saying that you're not going to go down quietly. That's punk. Yeah, hope would be, we're out. It should be extremely obvious why I'm bringing that up in relation to Episode 9 here. That's also why I'm playing this particular music. We just open on the dead kid. Jace is literally in tears. Enforcer's wheeling things off, you know. Vi is the one who has to comfort Jace. We come very, very close to a comic book fight, but we don't actually go there. Credit to the show. Jace has a wonderful tidbit where he says the next parents who get a message their kids isn't coming home, and he can't even finish the sentence because he shifts to his next thought. I don't even know where to take it. Do we just leave him here? It's funny that his engineering brain starts to kick over when he's in an emotional crisis, which makes sense given his overall mentality. That's actually a very normal thing that a lot of people don't actually do very often. The very ideas of defaulting. Anybody who knows me very, very well, which is none of you, but for those like few who know me very well, you know that I tend to default to programming language. Like when I'm really, really out of it, my speech is not very human sounding. I'm not saying that to brag, it's just we all have that. We all have those styles and approaches and thought processes that we lean back on when things are real. When we just can't cope. Or when we're just dealing with so much crap, or whatever, right? This is one of the reasons fiction likes to lean into this a lot, but this is true in real life. This is one of the reasons why you see a lot of soldiers who default to combat mode, right? Right? I actually used this in RFF1, believe it or not. Snap to get something done, work, right? Some people clean, just like obsessively clean. Have you ever seen the movie The Day After? I think it's called The Day After. I always forget the name of it. It's a story about a nuke going off in a city in Kansas. It's exactly as horrific as it sounds. And there's this wonderful, wonderful scene. This isn't even a spoiler, where they know the nuke is coming, and the woman is just sitting there trying to straighten the sheets on the bed. No, not funny. She's freaking out. She's defaulting. And so we see Jace here. It is the day after. I'm pretty sure it's the day after. It's a great film. Horrible film. Don't watch it. It's It's pretty messed up. You just default, right? Like, I don't know how else to say that. Jace is defaulting here, which is funny because we see Vi do the same thing, and we see Jinx do the same thing in this very episode. There's a lot of people who are just so in over their heads, so having problems coping with things. They just kind of fall back on whatever their default perspective is. Yeah, exactly. Talked about it. Like, who do I tell about this? How do I press? What do I... Chikonk. So Silco, accurately, points out that Marcus was the reason stuff like this wasn't happening, and he's so dismissive about it. That's okay. We'll buy another one. It'll be fine. Turns out the Kim Baron's son was one of the casualty, which I'd love to feel bad about, but I just get... God, stop giving me money! I'd love to feel bad about it. But at the same time, I really have a hard time feeling bad about a woman who decided to leave her son working down in the chem factories. Yeah, exactly, Bionic Punk. Like, what in the goddamn hell? Yeah, he knew what he signed up for. Yeah, she's literally a crime lord. Where does she think this is going? Yeah, she could have easily pulled him out of there. With money and with resources. Oh, she could have snuck him out if she had to. Yeah, he might have been an overseer. Family business. Thank you, Narset, very much. I'll jot that down for Heaven's Vault, Persona 3R, and Dungeon Siege 2. And Valerian. I think I missed it. He did sound the alarm, so, you know, sucks to be him. Our future overseer, Jesus. And thank you, Valerian, very, very much. I will jot that down for WoW War Within, Victoria 3, and whatever the other thing was, which was Dragon Quest 7. Always appreciate, thank you. So, this is all fun. Silco is actually starting to lose connections and loyalty here. Twitface is also legitimately considering what's going on, and you just see the build-up there. Then we cut to Viktor, who is now seeing Sky's face in her glasses. I wonder if that's a side effect of her being fuel for his hand, or if that is literally, you know, just him starting to freak out a little bit. Of course, he reads the letter she wrote. Goes to destroy the hexcore. Can't. They never actually explain why exactly he can't. Although we do see that the hexcore is capable of... The word I would use is punishing him. Yeah, the hexcore actually shocks him back in return as he's walking away from it. Interesting to think about. Yeah, we never get to see Jace destroying or trying to destroy the core, and we may never at this point. Mel, meanwhile, is actually angry at this point. First time I've seen her angry. She's dead, by the way. The man who killed your brother. Oh, yeah, sorry. Look, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Mel actually comes down hard on Mbessa. So, you know, that... Oof. Gets rid of the boy toy. Gets rid of the guard. And then we see something fascinating. Mbessa finally admits the thing. Like, she spent this whole time, she's talking with Jay, she's talking with Mel, she's flaunting her power and her wealth and her prestige and her freaking military-grade frigate and her personal escort. And this whole time, she hasn't actually said what she's after. So this is when she finally opens out about it. Finally. Drops the mask once. The man who killed your brother doesn't believe the score settled, and his resources exceed ours. That is a fascinating sentence. This woman, who is flaunting and puffing and probably higher tier than everyone else in this entire city, is running scared of someone else. So she came here for an edge, something to help her push back. Yep. Okay. So that's its own level of terrifying. This is when, this is also another fascinating insight into the greater setting and the greater world. But this is also when Mel says, I can't believe you'd start a war just to cover your ass. And she can't help herself but ask, why did you banish me? And this is when she's very honest. The most honest she's ever been. Weakened me. She was a morality pet. She didn't like the way Mel looked whenever she did what she had to. What she thought was necessary. Yeah, Noxus is such an unpleasant place to be in that she had to be this absolutely horrible person. And she hated having to deal with her daughter, constantly having to see her be that horribleness. It's really kind of messed up when you think about it. Yeah, imagine saying that to your own daughter. You weakened me. So, she offers the option. Give me the weapon. Let's make this work. Let's have our war. Let's have our, you know, our run. Let's have our I keep wanting to say play test. There's a term for it. Weapons test. Let's have our weapons test. We use this little war as a thing for it, and then you can come back home with me and take your place at my side. That's actually a hell of a balm being offered for something that Mel would probably have given a couple years ago without hesitation. You'll notice that all of this says so much about the greater world. This is an attempt to create a proxy war between two city-states for the sole purpose of testing a new weapon in order to help in an internecine conflict in a completely separate nation. Yeah. This says a lot. So, okay. Cut to Viktor, who lets Sky's ashes out at his private spot. Oh, I didn't know that, ISD. That's funny. That makes the last scene where she painted yellow all over it make more sense. No, Mbessa is really messed up as a person. And yeah, Viktor goes to kill himself. Jay stops him. Nice little scene. Viktor can't destroy the hexcore, so he asks Jace to do so instead. In the pursuit of great, we failed to do good. We have to make it right. Immediate cut to Silco. I love that cut. I know, I'm sorry, I just kind of washed over that scene. It's a good scene. It's a very good scene, don't mistake me. But it's exactly what it says. It's all right there on the tin. You don't need me to talk about it. What I love is how the scene so perfectly transitions into Silco's scene. Finn shows up, makes his power play very openly. And Silco drops the mask for probably one of the very first times that he's done so around other people. He talks about loyalty and the cause. If you remember, that's what Twitface has been about from the beginning. That's why she was pissed off at Vander, remember? So, she kills Finn. Lore shock. Yeah, Finn was always an idiot. And there's even this bit. It's wonderful the way she says it. She said, you know, Silco asks her, were you tempted? And her response is, not for him. Right person shows up? Maybe. But this guy? Screw Finn. However, I can't help but notice that Silco was actually legitimately scared. Did you catch that? Like, he was actually shaking and panting, like the adrenaline hit, because he thought he was about to die. Yeah, no, he wasn't sure how that was going. It's a nice touch. Normally I would have had your son killed for this, but I guess we're ahead on that. Get out. That's probably the coldest thing Silco says in this entire series. Then Jace makes a fascinating play. Several times in this show, someone will demonstrate. Silco himself has done that. They will demonstrate their power by putting themselves in a weaker position before their lessers. We saw Ambessa do this just in the previous episode, for example, where she was at her most vulnerable while in her lounging area around Jace. And we saw this with Silco himself, where he basically allowed Marcus to take the grenade. There have actually been a few examples of this throughout the show. So then we see Jace doing that. Jace is in the position of strength here. And it's fascinating because I'm not sure, and I don't mean this as an insult, I'm not sure most people realized that yet. I'm not sure most people didn't actually cognate that Jace is in the position of power when he reaches out to Silco. Silco himself definitely didn't. He flat out states, you're getting desperate. You know, you do this massive attack, and then you reach out for a parlay. He thinks he thinks Jace and the Piltover are reeling. Nope. What Jace saw was exactly what one of these kind of battles would do. Please remember that battle scene back in the previous episode. There were a couple of losses, but 2 people with Hextech weapons and a couple of enforcers, like one squad, maybe a platoon, ran over that entire factory. That wasn't a flawless operation, but that was a sweep. And Jace recognizes this now. We're gonna win if this comes down to it. Something that was pointed out to me by Evo, credit to Evo for this, is that in that very fight, there was a very clear Piltover versus Zon, blue versus pink, Hextech versus Shimmer vibe going on throughout the entire fight. It's a fascinating thing to point out, because Shimmer and those devices and those mechs and all of that was all of the stuff that Zon had been built out. It was all that Silco has been pushing for all this time, to give them weapons, to give them arms, to give them a heads up, to give them a leg up in the competition against Piltover, and Piltover still just ran over them. Hextech crushed them. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Hextech is a stable, reliable, repeatable energy source that can be used for a huge amount of things, including weaponry, of course. Shimmer, not so much. The closest we see to safe usage of Shimmer is what they do with Twitface, and even that, He also says something very fascinating here. Jace flat out states, and someone in chat already mentioned this just a second ago, there are threats beyond our walls. Jace is starting to see that the greater world exists. I know that sounds weird to say it that way, because like most people understand the world exists, but if you've been paying attention, this entire show has been very, very focused in on just these 2 towns and the Pilt, right? The frickin' river that they sit on either side of. It has barely left the city walls, like maybe 3 times. Yeah, everyone's all zoomed in. And yeah, then the city has short memory. There's this wonderful bit there where Silco seems to process and recognize that there are actually threats beyond there, because he does have some kind of a functioning brain. And so Jace dictates terms, which is fascinating, because that's what Silco came to do. And I actually wrote down the specific terms: free trade routes, blanket amnesty, unrestricted access to the Hex Gates, and sovereignty. That is actually pretty fair. Honestly, that's pretty legit. Just straight up recognizing their sovereignty. Okay, you have the right to rule yourself. We're hands off. You have access to the Hex Gates. Yeah, that tracks. Makes perfect sense. Blanket amnesty, that's just to wipe the board clean. That's actually pretty standard for a white piece. All war crimes are all gone. We're done. Cool. That's pretty standard. That's boilerplate. And then free trade routes, because yeah, of course they want access to the trade routes. Everything about that is actually completely reasonable, as weird as that sounds. Yeah, I know, very reasonable for someone like Silco. So, I love how Jace looks at this, and he says, you think you're in a position to argue this, and this is when he reveals, no, we're on top here. Your people wouldn't stand a chance, and the council wouldn't care, and he's right. If they decided to go to war, the council would just be like, alright, crush them like a bug, and they would. One little wrench in the thing aside, I'm sorry, Zon would get run over. So Silco is willing to go along with everything, and his body language is fascinating this entire scene. Because you could see that Silco is actually kind of thrown by a lot of this. He's considering it. there's like a degree of almost energy to how he responds. He's trying to mask it, but you can feel, like, to use the poker analogy, you can see he's got a good hand, right? He's getting across the fact that he's got a good hand, and he's happy and he's excited and like, this could be it, this could be it, except for Jinx. We need you to turn over Jinx. And the moment that hits, his body language stalls. His all of the mask, all of the portrayal of the big crime lord, all of it's gone. And there's just this tiny moment of shock. It's so minute, you wouldn't even notice it unless you're staring right at his face. It's just, like, it's a very, very tiny shift in expression, just chunk. What? And then he immediately, no, you can't go over Jinx. She was operating under my orders, which is a lie, by the way. Immediately jumps over that, and he is willing to go to prison to whatever they name the prison. I can't remember it, and put me down. I'll go. You can take me in, no problem. She's off the list. Amnesty. That's what I asked for. Stillwater, thank you. That's fascinating and so horrible. It's so horrible. Jace says nope. Jace just straight up says nope. Remember, Jace has the stronger position here, and he knows it. So, he has a very simple request. I will give you everything you want, and you will give me Jinx. We will have our pound of flesh. And he's even, like, disgusted by the whole thing. But there's a weird amount of empathy, sympathy with the way he talks about it. We all have this terrible thing we've got to do. I don't like this any more than you do, but we got to put up with it. Peace. And Silco's just left there, standing there like... We cut over to Heimerdinger. Quick aside, Heimerdinger helping Echo getting home. And Heimerdinger has a line, it's probably the worst line in the episode because it's a little bit too on the nose. You were able to pull all this off in your short lifespan. Yep. And there's this quick thing between survival and living, and then we just move away immediately to Silco. I love the transitions in this episode. Of course Silco is talking to Vander. Who else does he have to talk to? The boy didn't even haggle. Oh no, he's 100% asking for the council. Remember, all the way back in episode 1, all the council wanted was their pound of flesh. That's what started everything. He's asking for that. So yeah, of course Silco had that statue built. Of course he did. So yeah, he's sitting there. Yeah, I noticed he poured out a drink for Vander. I noticed. Poured one out for him. The boy didn't even haggle, and what do I lose but problems? Still calls Vander brother. I don't think we've ever actually seen Silco this open and this vulnerable in the entire show so far. When I noticed the names carved at the bottom, I caught that. And yeah, Jinx was the culprit from the very, very beginning. Not that anybody knows that at this point. Is there anything so undoing as a daughter? What Jace was willing to do for Viktor. What Mel was willing to do for Jace. What Mbessa was willing to do for family. Another little thing. Oh yeah, and of course Jinx is right there. So there's this really great scene. I love the directing on this show. There's this really great scene where some random drunk dude, and the camera follows the random drunk dude. As a fight's going on outside, we can hear bits and pieces of it. Camera, following him. It goes over here. We see her enter in the background. They use light to draw attention to her. It's something the whole show has been doing, actually. But that's all. The only thing that's really emphasizing her is the fact that there's this blue light in the background. The guy goes over, sets up his thing, blah, 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 and then walks over, and everyone's gone quiet, and then he realizes that Vi has entered the room. So, for the second time, functionally in a row, we have Hex Tech versus Shimmer. I am a little bit amused at how good of a job Twitface does in this particular fight. I suppose they really wanted this to be a good fight, but man, she gives pretty hard. The only reason I hesitate on that at all is because I kind of don't believe it. I mean, yeah, Twitface obviously has her arm and her shimmer, and that's cool, but Vi's upgraded too. She has the 2 of these monster death X-Tech arm death things, and Vi is actively angry. I'm sorry, I hate to say all this, but the reason Vi has so much trouble with this fight isn't because it makes it a better fight. It's because of the fact that she needed to be weak so Jinx could take her. This is a because plot. Now, I'm not going to ding the episode for that, but that is why this happens this way, I guarantee it. Vi needed to be weak so that Jinx could capture her and take her over to the thing. Cool. I don't have anything else to add to that. Regardless, it's a really good fight. It's also... So the first half of the fight is really good. The second half of the fight is extremely good. They do implication fighting, where the lights are kind of coming in and out, and rather than actually showing the full action, they do artistic tricks to essentially imply what's happening as the fight is going forward, and that's really, really, really good. Yeah, still images, just, whoa. That's, oh my god, that is so good. So Hextech wins, yay! And then Jinx gets her. Cool. This cuts immediately to Jace. So Jace mentions, you know, we had the option to do several things. He actually makes a specific line. He said we had the option to demonstrate our compassion, calling back to what Mel said to her mother back in the previous episode. But the time for that is past. I'm not fit to govern the Undercity, and neither are you. There's this wonderful bit where the counselors are like, excuse me, and he has this line, which I'm not going to quote word for word, but he says, with respect, I don't care what any of you think of me anymore. Except you. And then he turns to Mel. There's a lot of really cool, interesting things here in this scene. And obviously the counselors are all like, oh my god, because he offers peace. He offers peace. We have to have peace. And the counselors are like, we're dumb and we're stupid. I don't think that's what they're saying, but I'm pretty sure that's what they mean. And as Jace is weathering that particular storm, kind of locking in the politics, it's now time to deal with the monster. So, Jinx and Vi. Yeah, this is the scene at this point. I don't even know what to add to this, to be completely honest with you. Jinx and Vi both give a small bit of insight into how absolutely terrible their lives were. Yeah, it's called the Mechanicus playlist, Little Billy. Because their lives have been pretty crap. But what I find most amusing about this is Jinx talks about how the memories of Vi pushed her forward, and Vi talks about how the memories of Jinx pushed her forward, but it was in different directions. I'm saying that wrong. Jinx was getting negative reinforcement from her bad memories about Vi. Vi was getting positive reinforcement about her good memories about Powder. Jinx drove herself to be a worse person, whereas Vi strove to be a better one. This is very Wrath of Connie in several ways here. This is the first time Vi sees the puppets, too. And you could see on Vi's expression that she's starting to understand just how not her sister that person is at this point. I love there's this little animation here. Oh, I noticed Sevika. I noticed how Jinx grabs the armor and uses it to plop down the cupcake, and just can't help but shake her hands of it as she takes it off, like she's grossed out by having to carry the things. It's just a nice little touch. There's dozens of little touches like that. As usual, I try to just grab one and mention that one rather than waste your time talking about all of them. I'm sorry, I'm stuttering a lot today. I'm very tired. I apologize. Don't worry, I'm going to lay down right after this. And she can't help but troll, even here, but it's the only time she really does the funny ha-ha thing. The rest of the episode is more her being funny, uh-oh. This is the problem with this type of a villain, and one of the biggest reasons why this type of a villain doesn't work long-term, and why the Joker over in Batman should have died years ago and stayed dead. It's because this type of person who is this deranged, who doesn't actually have a true logical sense or a proper connection between action and reaction, doesn't really work all that well, because they are so deranged that what's supposed to happen is they're supposed to die. Can I spoil something minor for y'all? I know I've already said that I don't think Jinx is like the Joker, but there is one small thing I want to bring up regarding the Joker in the Arkhamverse, specifically that particular continuity. In that, in Arkham Origins, spoiler for Arkham Origins in 3, 2, 1, there's a scene where the Joker reveals that he's been behind everything the whole time. Believe it or not, that is something of a spoiler for that terrible, terrible game. But the point is, all he was doing was screwing everything over. He was stirring the pot. Got everyone pissed at everyone else, killed off half the crime lords in the city, completely usurped how the police operates, completely upended the table, and then was hit by an explosion which sent him flying off a building. And as he's falling, he's laughing because that's it. He did it. And in any reasonable story, that would have been the end of his story, right there. Did it, screwed up everything, wrench right there, thrown into the gears, dead. And that should have been the end of it. Now, obviously, that's not the end of it, but you get the idea. That was one of the best moments of that entire game for me, because it so perfectly understood the character and the type of character. Yeah, mission accomplished. Peace. And that's what I'm reminded of here with Jinx, who's got her one thing and her one perspective, and she's just kind of trying to process it a little bit. And the idea is once she gets it, well... So, she goes to Vi. Make her go away, please. Like, it's this little girl pleading, she does. The voice actress absolutely nails it. And you can have Powder back. Vi is the one who then argues, no, please. First of all, she obviously is not going to commit cold-blooded murder. Vi has been going out of her way to not kill this whole time. And also, as she says to Jinx, we can go, we can just leave, we can just get away from these people, we start to hear the voices again. Do you think that Jinx's offer was legitimate or not? Some fascinating divisions in chat here. But my answer is inaccurate question. Do I think Jinx meant it in the moment? Sure. But I don't think Jinx even understood exactly what she was stating. I said it earlier, deranged, disconnect. This person is insane. She does not have the ability to think logically or reasonably or in a linear line. I'm not saying that as like a hyperbolic statement or as like an adjective, more as a statement of descriptive fact. She does not have the ability to think rationally. I don't think it's possible for Jinx to make this offer at this point in history. I'm not sure it's possible for her to make any kind of offer at this point in history. Jinx is so broken at this point that it's arguable that she barely qualifies as a human being. I don't say that as an unkindness, because that immediately cuts to her taking off the gag off of Silco, who the first thing he says is, her name is Jinx. Do I think Silco is the primary culprit? Yes, 100%, absolutely. Jinx always had issues. I mean, she had a pretty bad childhood. But Silco pushed her right over that line. And pushed her for years. But don't mistake me, Jinx made the decision. I'm not trying to dismiss that. We've talked about that before. But so much of that impetus comes from Silco. there's a really interestingly tense shootout scene. Caitlyn's a hell of a shot, but she's got a wind-up time on her gun. Jinx is extremely unstable and can't do anything properly. And Vi doesn't want either of them to die. We also see that Jinx does have her shimmer abilities, yay. And there's an argument in which Silco and Vi literally argue over her, and the animation shifts completely to Jinx's perspective, to the point where Silco actually violently pulls himself out of his chair to shoot Vi, whereas Vi just sits there talking. Now that's interesting. That sounds familiar. Two parties, one of which is trying to reach out and have a reasonable discussion, and the other of which is reaching for a gun. That sounds familiar. Interestingly enough, Vi was probably doing more damage with her words than Silco was capable of doing with his gun. But, of course, Silco drawing the gun is what snaps Jinx out of it. As the child was growing smaller and smaller as the monsters gathered and swarmed around her, her instincts kick in. Remember, defaulting to factory default, right? The thing we talked about earlier with Jace. So she shoots. And now Silco is dead. Dying. So there goes the head of the snake. Yeah, as he's dying, he says she's perfect because he is an evil son of a bitch. I'm sorry. Silco is awful. We were talking earlier about whether or not that the Ambessa was the worst character in this setting. I actually think it's Silco. I do. There's this wonderfully horrible thing here about how Jinx is literally broken. Again, as we talked about earlier, it's arguable that she doesn't have the ability to function as a rational person. Medically speaking, when it comes to accepting legal ownership over decisions that someone makes, there's a state, which means you are out of your mind legally, at which point someone else makes those decisions for you because you are not rationally capable of making those decisions. Now, there's a bunch of gray area there. Let's ignore that for a moment, because Jinx is not in that gray area. She is out of her mind. She does not have the capacity to think rationally. Silco is and does. And despite the fact that he is in the right of his mind, he fully and formally, with full knowledge and acknowledgement of what it would mean, still continues to choose regularly and on a daily basis to be the most horrible, evil person he possibly can be. He has gone out of his way to be the worst possible version of himself, constantly in pursuit of a dream that he himself admits he would let go of with no hesitation whatsoever, damning everyone, including himself and his daughter, to a horrible existence and probably death. All for you, because you're so perfect, Jinx. Let me tell you something, because I've made fun of fiction about this for a very, very long time. It's when people are willing to go way over the line for family, right? For their brothers, or for their children, or for their parents, or for the loved ones, or whatever. And I always make fun of that, because I guess I just don't work that way. I know there's a form of tribalism involved in that, and certainly I'm not a big fan of tribalism. But I bring all that up because a lot of people tend to absolutely believe that, you know, your brother's your brother, or your mother's your mother, or whatever the relation is, the end, that it bypasses all bonds. And fiction likes to use this as a way to stir up drama. The counter-argument that's always leveled is, well, if your sister just turned into a horrible mass-murdering psychopath, you'd still have her back, to which I say, no, I wouldn't. If my sister turned into a mass-murdering psychopath, she wouldn't be my sister anymore, would she? She'd be a mass-murdering psychopath. So Silco, in his own diseased way, looks at Jinx as his one perfect daughter, and has caused pretty much all of the mess of this entire show. Like, oh, sure, there's some other people who get a degree of like, culpability and blame. But Silco really is that one person who needs to just be kind of... Yeah, Silco started the war. Silco made his own side worse, while also doing damage to the other side. Silco also made the division between the two sides worse, thanks to how he interacted with Marcus. And he did this willingly and knowingly for years. Silco's dead. Twitface is in charge now, probably. We saw a cutscene of her there. Cool. So, violence didn't work. Silco's dead. Jinx is left again. Left alone again. So Jinx wanders off, crying in Shimmer. There's a bit where Echo and Heimerdinger are coordinating. Singed is working on someone. I don't know what that's all about. Twitface is alive, lights the cigar, at least tries to, showing how much she's just not cut out for this. And then we see the counselors all unanimously voting for peace. The end. Oh yeah, by the way, called it. So yeah, this episode sucked, right? Worst episode ever. 0 out of 10. I think we all agree. Yeah, definitely lamentation status. All the way down. Just. What's really awful, I had a thought while I was watching the last scene there. I know some people would look at this and think, oh, well, the council gets what they deserve. I mean, it's right there in the title, right? The monster you created. And let's be clear, the council created this monster, right? Literally, actually, in several ways. So, you know, that sucks. I have to admit, I don't think that way. Maybe I just don't have the brain for it. Maybe I just don't have the mindset for it. But just because the council is a bunch of idiot morons who have actively gone out of the way to make everything worse for everyone the entire show does not mean that I'm going to stand up and cheer when they're all killed, especially as they're in the middle of doing the one good thing they've done in their entire career. Do I think peace was ever an option? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we know Viktor's probably alive because he's in LOL. We know Jace is probably alive because he's in LOL. I guess we'll find out in Season 2, whenever that comes out. Yeah, Greek tragedy. I called that right at the beginning. It's a Greek tragedy. I don't like Greek tragedies. I'm going to say something very strange. I didn't like this episode. Oh, it's extremely well done. But that ending de-invested me in the show so hard that I don't have really words to put into it. Like, that's just like, oh, so it was all for nothing. Okay. Like I said, I'm not into Greek. I'm not into Greek tragedies. I'm not into, like, hopelessness. Not a big fan. Yeah, Shaggy Dog Store, that's what that's called. Tragedy porn, that's another word for it. Not a fan. We are going to give the episode a purple rating. Of course we are. Duh. I don't even think that's a debate. as indeed it never should be. As I've said many times, if there's a debate there, it probably doesn't qualify. Doesn't feel right. No, I guess it does. Never mind. Yeah, no, that's right. No, I have not watched the Season 2 trailer. I did watch the music video. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I think a lot of that's because I just really didn't like the song. I know that's a meme. I know like people like to hate on Imagine Dragons, and I'm not sure why. I actually like the song Radioactive. Oh, you're right. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. I was wondering why that score seemed low. There we go. That's where that should be. I thought so. Thank you for pointing that out. I am out of it. Words. I watched the music video. Wasn't a big fan of the music, but I did like the visuals. I did like the back and forth. I did like a lot of the cinematography, the animation, the edits, and of course the symbolism. I don't know how to shave it up, do I? But yeah, that's why I was playing this song. You know why I don't like Warhammer 40k? Because there's no point to it. We've talked about this before. Now, granted, I'm an outsider and an idiot, but I've never felt the desire to get more invested in the series because it's just tragedy porn, right? It's like, okay, everything sucks forever, the end. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. When dark is the end of the sentence, not a big fan. Okay, so hang on a second here. It's like Bionic Punk. You know the really sad thing? I was really hoping that I was wrong about how the episode was going. Like, I really was thinking, oh man, this is going to be great, and this could go this way, and it's going to be that. Oh. Cool. That sucks. Hopium, I believe is what we call that. Yeah, I was actually thinking maybe she was just shooting for this guy. One last, screw you to the world or whatever. But nope. She aimed pretty well, actually. Yep, jinxed everything. Sorry, this is going to take me a moment, and then I'll give my final thoughts. I'd love to hear your final thoughts of, like, the show as a whole. And then I'll give some interesting little figures, because I keep track of a lot of little details when it comes to these. Right now, there are no future streaminations other than the last one we're doing. We'll see what the future holds. The way I like to phrase this is streaminations are on hold. I'm not canceling the feature, but right now they're just not really feasible for what they need to and should be. So right now, we'll see. That's exactly why I refuse all donations towards... why I refuse all future donations for shows right now. Because I don't want to, like... If you donate for something, obviously that's just kind of a symbolic thing, and I appreciate the donation. I call it that for a reason. But also, if I then say I will put that towards watching this show, I have now made a verbal contract. Regardless of legal enforceability, there's just basic ethics and morality involved, right? If I say I will cover Tangled, I'm going to cover Tangled, because I'm a man of my word. So, that's why I'm just saying no more donations for shows. That way I don't have to at any point say, no, I'm committing to something. So, to answer President's Clamp question, no, I am 100% not accepting donations for Streaminations at the moment. It's staying nice and closed for the immediacy. Yeah, maybe I should have done this off camera. There's a lot of people who guessed the exact same guess, and all of you are right, of course. Ah! Please. Yeah, it's easy to rate. It's easy to guess perfection. Nobody's gonna guess Tangled's score. Tangled is 3 seasons. Good luck with that one. Yeah, Tangled and Mandalorian, like, that's what a normal show looks like. Well, normal. A normal good show. Imperial Star Destroyer, you didn't put your winnings towards anything? 040, you didn't put your winnings towards anything? Time Lost, you only put your winnings towards one thing. Okay. So, really quick, congratulations to Bionic Punk, Doom Rider, Dr. Winter, Jesse's Mask, Shadow Machine, The Simple Gamer, Trihexia, Imperial Star Destroyer, 040, and Time Lost for all correctly guessing the score of this show, which was 49 out of 54, which is 90.74%, which puts it into purple territory for the entire show. That does put it below Andor, which I agree with, but that is 2 purple shows. In case I'm not making this clear, Clone Wars Season 7, a show that had 3 purples and 2 reds, scored a 65%, which means very good. Like, that's a actually very good show right there. In fact, you could see, if you're looking at the spreadsheet, I've actually laid up the exact percentage ranges, which qualify for what colors. Yeah, we are absolutely establishing the ceiling on animated shows and on live-action shows. I was asked to directly compare this to Andor. I do personally prefer Andor, regardless of quality, because Andor is all about hope fulfilled. It's all about that light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what else to put to that. But regardless of that's pretty much like the big thing that pushes Andor a little bit forwards from a purely personal perspective. Yeah, exactly. Andor is not punk. It is rebellion. I actually don't know. Hang on a second. Yeah, no, Arcane and Andor are both just ceiling establishers. Hey, it is still there. Let's pull up the Justified spreadsheet, because I think... Yeah, okay, so Justified... is colored wrong, I think? It is colored wrong. I'm not sure why. But, so ignore this, because this is literally wrong. I don't know what's going on with this, or how that happened. But if you look at the pie chart there, you'll see how Justified Season 1 lined up. Spoilers, it was pretty freaking good. 23% purples, 38% reds, 23% oranges, 15% yellows, no greens, no blues, no blacks. And yes, MLP is still there. By the way, have fun looking through that sheet. I took a lot of notes on MLP. You're welcome to peruse it. I was thorough. It's a long show. It's 9 seasons. But yes, MLP has a much bigger spread, as you can see if you scroll down on the far left there. Still a very good spread, but that's what a very good show looks like, something like MLP. I'm not sure the number. I'd have to figure that out. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Comparing Andor to Arcane, I do think Andor is a slightly better show. But it is such a minute difference that I'm willing to just put the two shows right alongside each other. You know what I mean? They are both crazy high quality. And yeah, exactly. Inches amongst miles, right? Just right up there alongside each other. I stand by what I said earlier. We have established the ceiling of television. Yeah, Arcane did have less episodes, that's true, by 3, as it happens. What's funny is both shows share a lot of DNA with each other in several ways. I don't know who actually made Arcane, but I know that Andor was made by a team which generally wasn't really into Star Wars. So, outsider perspective, Wrath of Khan reference, we're walking. Andor was also something that took years and years and years to make. Like, that was not a short production cycle. And was extraordinarily expensive. I'm not sure how long Arcane took to make and how expensive it was, but yeah, now they have all the tools in place. So Arcane was 6 years. I thought so. I didn't want to say that overtly, but I thought so. So yeah, Arcane also took years and years to make and was pretty expensive. It's funny what you get when you really have all the pieces in place. I am aware that there was a hell of a thing behind the scenes of making this show, and I am curious to look into that someday in my copious spare time. Well, Andor is one of those shows that's extremely good, but not popular, Lord Harrimont. Oh, don't mistake me. Andor is certainly been making waves in its own way, but there's a reason The Mandalorian is the popular show, whereas Andor is one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. And remember, I've analyzed we came up with like 16 shows at this point. Favorite character in Arcane? Oh, I'm going to ask that of the crowd too. Who's your favorite character in Arcane? That's actually a tough one. That's a really tough one. Let me think about that. Let me really process that. That's a really hard question. A lot of those characters are multiple positive characters, you know, right? If this was a standard review, multiple positives to that. That's funny. Dr. Winter. I shouldn't say that. That's not funny. Honestly, so okay, like objectively, Jinx wins, right? Jinx has the best voice acting, has the best usage of her screen time, and the best animation. Her storyboarding, her fight scenes, just her talking and walking around, the way they do her madness. Jinx wins, right? Pretty much 1-to-1. But that's because they threw so much of the money and weight and time behind her. But that's not the question you asked. You asked my favorite character. I think it's Mel. Mel's story is fascinating to me. This is someone who is both literally and emotionally in exile from her family, who comes from a very harsh, terrible upbringing, who still pushes up against that, who actively goes out of her way to try and be a better person, simply because she chooses to. And she has a hell of a character arc on top of everything else that's going on, right? She's almost assuredly dead, which is, I mentioned that earlier. Yeah, she's Vivienne if Vivienne was a better character, you know? Or, not, I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. If she was a better person, right? If she was a more positively inclined person. She's fascinating. Like, I've said it before, my favorite scene from Mel that really stuck with me is when Jace lays his head down in her lap, and she, like, physically recoils, like she's weirded up. She's weirded out by it, like it just doesn't process for her that this man cares about her, that this man is vulnerable around her. Like, there's so much being said. She doesn't say a single line of dialogue that conveys it. You could just tell it's like, okay. And then she opens up to him about it. Yeah, this man just had sex with her. But, I mean, you get the vibe that that's just like shaking hands for her, right? That's just fun. That's entertainment. So that's just, I don't know. I really like a lot of what they do with her throughout the course of the show. She was interesting early on, and she was fantastic later on. She was also probably the biggest proponent for why the peace initiative worked, if you're paying attention. Oh, sure, Jace was the one pushing it. He was the frontliner. It was all on his shoulders if and when things go badly, and it probably will be in Season 2. But the one backing him was Mel. Mel backed his play a lot, and was clearly choosing between the ideas of trying to talk or trying to pull the gun, and decided to talk. Yeah, I guarantee you Mel is the one who got the other counselors to vote yeah for the peace initiative. Yeah, exactly. Fascinating character. I really hope she lived in Season 2. Because she didn't. She super didn't. She's dead. She's dead. Of course she is. Greek tragedy, right? The pillar of support and foundation, fascinating, interesting, engaging character. Nah, kill her off. Or worse, yeah, broken beyond repair. I ain't watching nothing. I'm not even looking at Season 2. I know I'm pretty good at avoiding spoilers. I have years of experience with it. So I am completely locked away when it comes to Season 2. Yeah, trailers. Yeah, I still don't know about Tears of the Kingdom. That came out last year. I'm going to be walking into that blind in a few weeks here. And I will admit, I am proud of that talent, because that is a skill I have honed over, again, quite a few years. Every now and again, a little thing slips through the cracks, which irritates the crap out of me. Thank you, Chill Pangolin, for your support. Always. If there's anything that's not a show that you'd like to put that towards, please let me know. Thank you. The words. There's something else I wanted to share. I feel like I haven't done a good enough job of emphasizing how good this show looked. Hang on, let's switch this up to some music that's a little bit more positive. Just a little bit. Let's pull up from the grim dark for just a second. Let's go with this. Yeah, I've actually covered a lot of animated art styles. There was actually a deliberate intent to do this in a certain way, which we ended up not doing. The original goal... oh, hang on. So it's going towards Sid Meier's Pirates. I hate writing that, his stupid name. 2D platformer block, and... Remind me of the acronym. I'm sorry. I don't remember what the acronym... I'm too much of a headache. I apologize. I think it's Animals is what the A stands for. Probably ISD. Super Lesbian, that's it. Super Lesbian Animals. Thank you. As always, Chill Pangolin. So... The original intent was I was going to cover Arcane on Saturdays. That's the compromise there. And then I was going to go through and do Andor, Mandalorian, and then Clone Wars Season 7. Then Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Donkey Kong Country Show, and Tangled. And the whole time while covering Arcane. Originally, Arcane was actually going to be right after Donkey Kong Country Show and then before the other thing. That was how it was supposed to line up. The whole idea with there was, if you're paying attention, every animated show we have just covered has a noticeably different animation style to it. Clone Wars Season 7 is Western 3D animation. Cyberpunk Edge Runners is straight up anime. Donkey Kong Country Show is also 3D animation and terrible. We also have Tangled, which is standard 2D animation Western style. And of course we have Arcane, which is a fascinating, it's actually kind of a mix of 3D and 2D, but I'm willing to put it into 3D overall animation. But you see, like, you look at Arcane, you look at Clone Wars Season 7, and the style difference is immediately apparent. Even if they fit into the same general genre, these things are massively different. And the way that each of these shows has used their animation as part of the show has been legitimately fascinating to try and dig into as much as I possibly could. Again, like, I have this shot from earlier to really help to emphasize, like, the nature of how they use the animation. Look at this shot for just a second. Really take this in. This is really, really, really good. What I usually call composition. I think I'm actually using the word wrong. What is where and how what connects to other what. That's what I'm thinking of when I think of composition. The usage of color, the usage of lines, the amount of real estate that's devoted towards one thing or another, which specific things are animated. Arcane is probably the single best animated show I've ever seen in my life, in terms of just raw quality. In terms of the sheer quality of the animation itself. Not the show, although Arcane is one of the best shows I've ever covered. But, like, even if it's somehow, like, even if the story axis sucked, right? Even if somehow this show magically sucked, this is insanely high quality. Everything about how they animate it, what they animate it, and they don't even just do the thing where it all looks good. They like to experiment periodically. They like to bounce around with regards to the styles and types and direction that they use with regards to different types of animation. It's really, 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 really good stuff. And again, is why it makes so much sense that it has such an extraordinarily high rating. I just wanted to comment on that very briefly, because I honestly feel like I have done a disservice and not actually done a good job of actually explaining how crazy good this show looks. Really? Bionic Punk? That makes perfect sense. Of course it does. I think that's actually all I've got. As weird as that sounds, this has been a fascinating experience, and I hope you all have been enjoying this run-through. I am a little dizzy and on the verge of actually passing out, so I'm gonna go do that. Tomorrow, like, no more streams for the rest of the day. I'm not doing great. Tomorrow, we'll go ahead and we'll continue with Tangled. I believe we are currently up to Season 1, Episode 6, The Return of Strongbow for Tangled. Otherwise, I hope you have a good weekend.